So Nirmal Kumar Bose and his perspective on Indian civilization, that I am going to discuss today. Okay, Nirmal Kumar Bose, what is his emphasis while talking about Indian civilization and culture? What he emphasizes on? Basically, he emphasizes that Indian society has the capacity for cultural absorption and economic interdependence. These are 2 points I am trying to make. What is called cultural absorption and what is called economic interdependence. I think these 2 points needs to be first dealt with. Cultural absorption means it is not that Indian society, unlike the West, it's not competitive. Indian society is not competitive in nature, rather it tries to absorb with its own ethos, with its own cultural values and civilizational point of view. What does it mean? It focuses on that how a particular society or how a particular group is in connection with other groups. It is a kind of creative and lively encounter. It means that if a particular tribe, for that matter, are in some way or other are linked with the other tribes of that particular region, in some way or other they are linked with other caste groups of that particular region, in some way or other they are linked with other larger communities and people living nearby that area. So what happens? Take the example of M.N. Srinivas. He has talked about cultural limitations. Cultural limitations in the sense that a particular group, when he considers that others are better than them in terms of economy, in terms of lifestyle, or in terms of ritual hierarchies, so they try to adopt them. It means India or people of India have the capacity to go for cultural absorption, means imitating, observing the culture of others. So, the first point what N.K. Bose is trying to say, it has the cultural absorption and it has economic interdependency. That means a community is interdependent with other communities. So, economic interdependency also you can see in Indian communities, in Indian people. So, 2 aspects, cultural absorptions and economic interdependence, because they encounter with each other and they try to learn or they try to imitate or they try to adapt from others. On the other hand, if you look at European society, it is competitive in nature. Competitive in the sense that it is not absorbing each other, rather it is competitive with each other, means a particular community tries to have its own cultural ethnocentrism, and because of which they feel competitive with each other and they consider their culture is better than others. An ethnocentric approach maybe makes European society more competitive among its groups and among its people. So, but India is not like that. What N.K. Bose is trying to say, try to observe with other communities, and it is economically interdependent. The second important aspects of N.K. Bose is you can find out from his studies, specifically the interaction between tribal and non-tribal Hindu societies. That means tribal societies are interacting with non-tribal societies, but these interactions take the community towards cultural absorption and economic interdependence. So, it takes the community towards cultural assimilation. That is how a particular group is trying to assimilate with other groups, and through the process of assimilations, they tries to develop themselves or they tries to bring change among themselves. So, there is something called cultural assimilations. The other term is cultural diffusion. So, cultural assimilation and cultural diffusions are 2 important concepts. You must read and find it out. And through this cultural assimilations, what happens? You can see among the tribes, you can locate a syndrome of caste-based system. So, cultural absorption into the caste system, in the sense that it is not only among only the tribes as far as N.K. Bose is concerned, but you look at other societies in India, other religion for that matter in India, you will find that this caste or hierarchical caste syndrome you can find in other religions, other communities also. So I think, but here what N.K. Bose is trying to argue, he is just trying to say that because of this culture, because of these interactions, the tribes and non-tribes, a caste, they also trying to adopt a caste-like system among themselves. But the worry what N.K. Bose was trying to talk about, that because of this British rule and the new economic forces, traditional Hindu social structure has transformed. What point he is trying to argue, N.K. Bose? He is trying to say that because of this British rules, the traditional Hindu social structure has transformed. What does it mean? You know, as I have said many times, the caste is a cultural institution, caste is an economic institution, and I think it still continues. I think the caste-based occupations, caste-based traditional occupations, caste-based culture still continues in India, but because of this British rule, there is some kind of deviations, some kind of transformations also occur in Indian society. You know, when I say that traditional Hindu social structure has been impacted by the British rules and the new economic forces and technology which they have introduced, because of that, the rigidity of caste structure, the rigidity of caste-based occupations has diminished. But on the other hand, you can see India still that caste-based rigidity and caste-based occupations are persisting. But if you take N.K. Bose point of view, he says that because of this economic initiative by the Britishers and the technological innovations they brought, I think some kind of transformation has taken place. So he's not talking about change, he's talking about transformations, which is bigger than change or larger than change. So what are the examples to look at this? If you talk about Surjit Sinha, he is talking about a particular community, those who came in contact with the British Raj, and they left their traditional occupations and they tried to patronage with the British, and that patronage has influenced them to take a new kind of occupations. I think that has to be kept in mind. So I think he talks about the community in Raipur. There you can see Sinhas. I think he tries to talk about the Sinhas. They living their traditional occupations and joining the other occupations, and it has happened across the country. Because of the British Raj and because of the technological innovations they introduced, because of which a certain caste they adopted a different kind of occupations, which I have given the example of Surjit Sinha's community he has referred to in his study, which you have to find it out what study I am referring to. So I think such kind of examples you can find. For example, if you talk about Northeast also, tribes, they also adapted to different kind of occupations, living their traditional occupations because of the British Raj and because of the technological innovations. So actually that has to be also a further studied. I think if you look at N.K. Bose in the present context, you can look at what kind of transformation has taken place because of British Raj, because of many forms of economic changes, which has certainly the traditional economic base of Indian society, which was largely caste based. It was got transformed, and slowly we proceed towards industrialization. So that also I think has impacted Indian caste structure and the occupational structure. So, what are the key aspects of N.K. Bose civilizational perspective? There are 4 or 5 points I'll be trying to talk about. One is called the cultural absorptions, which I have already narrated. How a particular community has tried to absorb into other communities' way of life or activities, economic aspects. So, N.K. Bose believed that this civilization had an extraordinary ability to absorb, and I think Yugen Singh also has talked about this kind of absorptions, and what Yugen Singh is trying to say when he talked about resilience of Indian culture. The resilience of Indian culture, what Yugen Singh is trying to say, culture change in India, crisis and resilience. Look at that particular book where you can see why he is using the term resilience. If you refer to his other book called Culture Change in India and Globalizations, there also he also says the same thing. That means India is a different kind of country and it has the tradition that Mughal before that other communities came and ruled over India, then Britishers ruled over India. So therefore in Indian culture, Indian psychic or Indian people have developed this kind of ability to absorb with other cultures and other way of life. So cultural absorptions N.K. Bose is trying to talk about, but if you look at Yogen Singh's his analysis, there also you can see that this kind of cultural absorption is also taking place. That means India as a whole, not about tribe and caste, but also India as a whole, which has subjected to many rulers, and therefore the process of globalization is nothing new for India, because India has its own civilizational point of view, has been ruled by many rulers. So we try to absorb with this community. For example, if we talk about Lucknow is popular in the entire country because of its Mughlai culture, isn't it? So Nawabi culture. So what does it mean? That means it refers to that the Nawabi culture still persists and continue in India in comparison to other parts of the country. But the point here is it refers to about cultural absorptions, that how a particular community, the entire country has been absorbed to the ethos of modernization, the ethos of Islamizations, the ethos of globalizations. So it is not new, and people of India are quite familiar with such kind of situations, and they try to adapt themselves or observe themselves to the culture of others. But N.K. Bose is talking about different. But the point here, he talks about cultural absorptions, where Indian civilization had an extraordinary ability to observe and adapt ideas and experience from diverse sources, leading to cultural transformations. What India you are seeing today, it has been impacted by many forces, and it has not retaliated, rather it has tries to absorb and adopt the ideas and experiences from diverse sources. You can talk about Islamization, you can talk about British Raj, you can talk about colonial developments, you can talk about globalizations. I think all has given a kind of new experience to India that takes us towards cultural absorptions. And therefore, what Yugen Singh says, I think it is in tune with N.K. Bose. India's civilization has an extraordinary ability to absorb and adopt ideas and experiences from diverse sources, leading to cultural transformation which has taken place in India. And it is therefore a different kind of civilization altogether, different kind of culture altogether. It has different kind of cultural absorptions, or it has the ability to retain its own culture as well as adapt to the new cultures. So I think the first point about the key aspects of civilizational perspective is cultural absorptions. The second is economic interdependence. You know, the model of Indian civilization, what N.K. Bose is trying to say while talking about economic interdependence, he is trying to say that Indian civilization characterized by economic interdependence, and economic interdependency with communities bound by traditional ties and a system of non-competitive vocational productions. Now let me give an example from Andre Bete here. If you read Andre Bete, which I'll be discussing while talking about the interdependency of communities, what exactly Andre Bete is trying to argue, just let me come to the point again. But the point what I'm trying to argue, economically a particular community is dependent with other communities. If you narrate the dependency of a particular community, specifically he refers to the Onam festivals. He says that a particular community or people, those who are tilling the land of the upper caste in South India, from his study I'm referring to, it is a kind of interdependence. So they till the land because they don't have land. So the upper caste has the land. So the lower caste, they till the land, and because they are tilling the land, so therefore the upper caste are very liberal in their attitudes by providing them the food grains and also providing them monetary support, and they also provide them clothes. That is, that it's not competitive. That means a particular community which is stealing the land of other communities, they don't feel competitive among themselves, rather they are interdependent with each other, and therefore at times when there is a crisis or there is a Onam festival, then these communities were given support, and the upper castes were very liberal in their attitude to give them support and provide them all kind of financial and food grains and all these things by which they can also lead a comfortable life. I think that's what this economic interdependency, that's what he's trying to say. The other example of economic interdependency, if you talk about maybe the Jajmani system, a particular community how is dependent with other communities, or if you talk about the third, that means a particular community is engaged in some kind of activity, specialized activities, and the other communities are engaged in other specialized activities. I think they support each other. If you talk about Villages and Republic, I think that the book you must refer, Villages and Republic, that all suggest about the interdependency of a particular caste and communities, and that interdependency and specialized, no, it's a kind of specialized activities a particular caste used to do, and that is being supported by other castes and communities, because each and every caste cannot do each and every activities. So therefore, in a compact sense, in an interdependent sense, or in an organic sense, you can say that caste and communities are interdependent with each other, and therefore they tries to provide support, and they are not competitive vocational productions. They are not competitive vocational productions. For example, a particular person who can till the land, a particular person who can produce oil, the other person can produce cloths, the other person can produce the shoes. So therefore this interdependency is there, and of course if you talk about the earlier days, it was there in a kind of barter system, because money, the introduction money of course was there, but largely Indian society was governed by the exchange of goods and services. So if you provide me the services, I'll give you some goods. I think in some parts of the country still persisting, though the importance of money has grown to a large extent, but this kind of dependency you can see even today in some parts of the country. Therefore, these communities are not competitive in nature. But what has happened in recent days? That is the concern actually. It has made us competitive to each other, and it has made that people don't concern about the products they produce. They just want overnight that how this product can be grown in big size, I can sell in the market, I can get the money. So I think because of this the process of you can say market and globalizations, I think a community and caste and people those are engaged in agricultural activities, they feel competitive, and that is the concern for modern society. But if you talk about this N.K. Bose, you can talk about the economic interdependence that exists between different communities, and they are bound by traditional ties, and a system of non-competitive vocational production system exists in India to a large extent. In my understanding, it still continues in India. If you go to eastern Uttar Pradesh, you can find the Adhya Bhatiya culture. Now, what is called the Adhya Bhatiya culture? That means the land is given in Adhya or in Bhatiya, in sense that it has been given, the land is given to you, and you produce the agricultural products and give a part of it, 1/4 or half of it, or something like that. So it is called Adhya Bhatiya in eastern Uttar Pradesh, and the same thing you can find in other parts of the country. I think that suggests that how a particular community is interdependent economically with each other. The third point is tribal and non-tribal interactions. So he largely conducted extensive field work and find out what a kind of relationship exists between tribal community and the wider non-tribal societies. So there is a kind of relationship exists between tribe and the non-tribe, and in the process, what he's trying to say, the process of tribal assimilations which has taken place into Hindu social structure through the caste system. That means among the tribes also you can see the caste kind of characteristics. So caste kind of characteristics you can find among the tribes of the country, and that has happened because of tribals and non-tribals, they come together and the communities are influenced by each other. So therefore the caste kind of characteristics you can see in tribal societies. That is called the Hindu social structure is also reflected in tribal societies. Then the impact of British rule, this is another aspect what N.K. Bose is trying to talk about. He is worried about that because of this British colonial rule, there was a kind of disruption of the traditional Indian society and economic installations they have initiated, the technological transformation they have started. So all that new technologies and economic system which this Britishers introduced, I think that has created a kind of competitiveness, and that has loosened the traditional structure of Hindu society, and because of which the tribes has been pushed towards agricultural craft based livelihood. But the point I'm trying to say, he is saying that Indian civilization and Indian society has got a kind of setback because of this, or develop a competitiveness among themselves, because of which it has transformation has taken place, and the Britishers has, I think, somehow disrupted the traditional Indian social system. The third point is about, he was critical about the divine origin of caste and the purity and pollution concept, what I have explained earlier. He explains that the caste system persistence through its provision of economic and cultural security. Caste continues because of economic and cultural security, not because of its divine origin, not because of its notion of pollution and purity. I don't know to what extent you agree with this or not, but as far as N.K. Bose is concerned, he is saying that caste system has to be understood as a system of economic and cultural security.